Hello everyone, Waxo here, and welcome to the channel. This is going to be the initial episode of a series in which I play through games that I think are interesting and believe should be on everyone's radar to play through eventually. These may either be games that appeal to a certain niche, or have had a pretty decent following, but not necessarily the most popular out there. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, a comment, talking about what game that you would like covered in a future episode, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Now, without further ado, let's look at why you need to play the new Tomb Raider Trilogy. The action-adventure genre holds some of the largest hits in the medium in general, whether it's cutting down the Greek and Nordic pantheon, beating down thugs in the streets of Gotham, or making your way through the fields of Hyrule. It's no doubt that the genre is home to some absolute gems that the majority of gamers have experienced at some point in their gaming career. And for me, after having the opportunity to play through these games, the recent Tomb Raider Trilogy is one that I believe should be on the list of anyone who is a fan of the genre. And though it may not be as phenomenal as other experiences out there, I still believe these are games that are an absolute must-play to anyone who is a fan of action-adventure. But before I get ahead of myself, let's start by discussing the 2013 reboot. When Tomb Raider 2013 was first revealed in 2011, it showed that the series was taking a different approach this time around, focusing on a darker, grittier, more emotional telling of the Lara Croft story. When it comes to that concept, at least in the first of this trilogy, it only kind of works. Start with the good, Lara Croft herself is absolutely great in this game. Voiced by Camilla Luddington, we find her at her wit's end as she's trying to battle against the worst odds as she and her friends are stranded on the lost island of Yamatai. From the emotional line delivery to cries of anguish and exertion, one of the stronger moments from Luddington actually comes from when Lara has to kill for the first time. Even in its brevity, Luddington's performance is brilliant. Actually, I'd say that performance-wise, all characters here are well acted. It's in the writing of these characters that's not all that great. Aside from just a couple, I never really felt truly attached to anyone. Not getting too into spoilers here, but one character in which the crazed cultists are vehemently after throughout the game, but instead of a couple moments where she and Lara spend a lot of time together, and being captured by cultists the other half of the game, there's not really much of a connection there. It's no real attachment to the character aside from her being friends with Lara. But aside from the writing, the overall story is pretty much dumb fun as you traverse these beautiful landscapes and intense set pieces. The rest of the game is also pretty great. The outstanding feature is the collectibles, particularly the relics and notes. And while yes, just about every game in this genre has collectibles, how Tomb Raider goes about it is actually incredibly intriguing, or at least it was to me. This is one of the few games in which whenever I found a document, instead of immediately backing out and say I'll read it later, I would stop and actually read and listen to what it is I just picked up. And as for relics, being a Tomb Raider game, it was always fun listening to Lara geek out about whichever she came across. And being a Tomb Raider game, there's also challenge tombs that are meant to harken back to the old school games and are both fun and indeed challenging at times, each one being considerably different from the last. Overall gameplay is fun and frantic, if not a bit on the easy side. The game features an auto-cover system for when you engage in firefights and offers you a small assortment of weapons. As you progress through the game, you unlock a bow, pistol, assault rifle, and shotgun, which you can upgrade by using the salvage that you find in your environment. Upgrades that are quite meaningful, whether it's just adding ammo and a higher fire rate to your assault rifle or incendiary rounds to your shotgun. There are also light survival and RPG mechanics that allow you to hunt and scavenge items like animal hide, feathers, and wood for crafting. There's also a leveling system that allows you to put points towards one of 3 skill trees that offer basic skills like looting more resources and getting a quick time event for an instant killing finisher on an enemy. All these elements combine to make a damn good start to this new trilogy, and is what got me initially hooked into wanting to play more of these as they came out. Though yeah, it certainly left a lot to be desired for. There's no denying the potential and scope in what Crystal Dynamics was doing, things that would be mostly realized in the following sequel. Rise of the Tomb Raider is the result of Crystal Dynamics looking at all the groundwork they laid in the reboot and doubling down on it, making it better in just about every way. From the story, crafting, collectibles, combat, everything here is an improvement over the original. This entry follows Lara as she ventures to Siberia and hunt for the lost city of Katesh in the Divine Source, an ancient artifact that grants immortality in an effort to clear her father's damaged reputation. The story also focuses on themes like PTSD, which stems from her time on Yamatai, and childhood trauma and the result from her father's suicide. This is all complicated when she gets into the middle of a battle between a group of locals who are fighting Trinity, an evil organization hell-bent on finding powerful artifacts to change the world and has ties to Lara and her father. The main villain, Constantine, is attempting to find the divine source before her as he wants to use it to help his dying sister, as well as use it to rid the world of sin in order to establish a new world order. This is a much better improvement over the original story, and I found myself practically engaged all the way to the end. The one complaint I do have, however, comes from the reoccurring character Jonah. Although very likable, his undying loyalty to follow Laura anywhere her crazy escapades lead, as well as the fact that he isn't really involved in the majority of the story save for the beginning and last act, is mildly confusing. The one DLC storyline, Baba Yaga Tomb Raider Witch, was also a trippy little treat. I don't want to veer too much into spoilers as for those who want to play it, but I found it enjoyable, and the final boss battle was really fun to play through. The environments here are absolutely stunning, and having played on an Xbox One X in native 4K, the amount of detail here was absolutely breathtaking at times. Whether it was the wide open vistas of the geothermal valley, or the golden gorgeously detailed wall paintings throughout the caves. Challenge tombs also return and are even better this time around, featuring new mechanics and requiring the use of various tools you find throughout your journey. And now upon their completion, they reward you with useful bonus skills like being able to quickly shoot up to 3 uncharged arrows in a row in rapid succession. The combat here is also an absolute blast, especially if you're more into stealthier gameplay. I personally expect Laura to be a more stealthy combatant, and it was incredibly rewarding as I leapt from trees and hidden bushes before viciously stabbing the unfortunate Trinity soldier that wandered by. The crafting and leveling systems have also been deeply renovated. Upgrading weapons is still incredibly rewarding as you now have a variety of ways of doing so. Rise of the Tomb Raider is essentially the best kind of sequel there is when it comes to gaming. It takes all the best elements from its predecessor and improves on them in just about every way imaginable, creating an experience that simply cannot be passed up on. It's a solid game in the genre and just overall a great experience. And even though I really enjoyed this entry, it's the third one that sticks with me the most because it really nails what Crystal Dynamics initially set out to do: create a darker, grittier, and emotional story for Lara Croft. Shadow of the Tomb Raider feels like the vision that they set out to capture is finally fully realized. The newest installment follows Lara and Jonah as they're in search for an ancient Mayan dagger in South America before the evil Trinity gets their hands on it. When she does, however, it's revealed during a confrontation with the main antagonist, Pedro Dominguez, who's also the head of Trinity High Council, that without the matching box for the dagger, the end of the world will be set in motion, and that is exactly what happens. As the search for the box begins, we see that obsession has all but overtaken Lara, as well as believing that the consequences from the dagger are solely on herself. Jonah is also finally made more relevant this time around, as he acts as both an anchor to Lara as well as having to deal with his own personal grievances. Aside from these two, there is also a cast of characters that are rather compelling, including the main antagonist Dominguez. There are some minor changes here to the overall gameplay, but also seems to be a little more reminiscent to the older Tomb Raider games, as the return of her rappel and the ability to swan dive. Combat here is absolutely brutal this time around. Though Lara has proven herself as a killing machine in the previous iterations, in this installment, she just seems much more vicious. Whenever you pull off a stealth attack, you notice how she does so with absolute ease in comparison to the previous titles. With the inclusion of the ability to rub mud on yourself and hide along vine and mud covered walls, makes Lara seem absolutely terrifying at times. Challenge tombs are here again and are some of the best in the series. I didn't get to do as many this time around, a problem I will rectify in New Game Plus, another new feature to the trilogy, but the ones I did complete were a lot of fun, such as a Mayan obstacle course of death and a giant Spanish galleon. And though a lot is the same in this installment, I found it to be an enjoyable and satisfying conclusion to the series and felt that the investment into these games were truly worth it. I wholeheartedly believe that anyone who is a fan of the genre should at some point check these games out. And with the conclusion of these games, now comes the search for the next game or games that have been underlooked. But until next time, take it easy.